So there we go. 17 mil. You don't need an air tool to do this. Pull off the rim and the tire. Okay, here it is without the wheel assembly on there. One thing we want to do is drain out some of the old brake fluid that's in the caliper. This is .4 brake fluid, so make sure you get .4. Do not use .3 in this system. Here's your brake bleeder right there. I'm just going to pop off the rubber. There we go. And it's a 11 millimeter. Use one of these box end wrenches if you can, or a 6-point socket. Actually, you can't get into this one very well at all, so we're going to use a socket on that. Okay, so we're just going to try this again. This is 6-point socket. Don't use a 12-point socket or you're going to strip this guy out here. So you're just using the socket to crack this, and you can use your wrench after that. This one's not too bad. Had tighter, although it's very tight right now. And it's leaking fluid, so we want to put our drain on there, on the hose here. As you can see from the last time, we had about 1.5 centimeters in there, and we're going to add about the same on this one. We're just going to let this gravity drain. We're getting the old fluid that's in the caliper out of here. With the .4, it doesn't get as brown or green, it looks like, as the .3, because .4 takes higher temperature. This actually almost looks like new. I mean, it's a little bit green, but anyway. Okay, we'll let that drain out and give this a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Do something else while you're watching this come out. Alright, so we've got another centimeter and a half of fluid in there. That's good enough. We're going to pop that off and retighten that bleeder. It's going to spill a little bit, but that's okay. That one's tight. I can see that sucker busting off next time I try to get it out of there. Anyway, you pop the rubber cap back on. That's it. And this guy, you gotta kind of leave this up, and otherwise your fluid will leak out of there if you drop it down on the ground too soon. We'll just leave it right there for now. Let that drain out into its container. Now what we gotta do is work on the two caliper retaining bolts. We got one 13 millimeter bolt here and one on the bottom right there, and as you can see there's a 15 millimeter right in the middle here, but you have to have super skinny wrenches to get in there. So I kind of cheat, and this is the shade tree method. Don't give me too much crap on this. Anyway, this is like a hose clamp pliers, okay? And you can use those. You can go around there just like that and hold it fairly firmly while you undo the 13 mil on the other side. And it works perfectly fine. All you're doing is just retaining this on the other side. There's not huge tension to get this off. These are fairly tight. I've got a Loctite stuff in there, so it might take a bit to get it off. That's hilarious. Shove that back up there. Stupid legs on this thing are coming apart. These are not reusable. You'll get these bolts with your new brake pads, so don't bloody use those again. On the bottom one, it's a little bit different. You can hang on to it again, right there, with pliers. But this time it's almost impossible to get a regular ratchet in there. Ouch. There we go. You can also use a 15mm right there on the inside and your 13mm on the outside, but you'll need a very skinny, this is way too thick, you'll need a very skinny 15mm to get in here. Now there's not a lot keeping the caliper in there. If the whole thing kind of moves around, and you can slide it out now, okay, and you can pull the slides out right there. You want to clean those up, wipe them off, get some lithium grease on there. Same thing, top and bottom. Okay. The bottom one is longer, the top one is shorter. It's pretty obvious, you know, the distance there. Okay, so the new pads come with spring retainers. Okay, there's only one way to put these in. Top and bottom is identical. Okay, so here's your old pads on both sides. You can use a screwdriver or a knife or something and just pry those open. They just pop out. And you can see there's very little pad material. There's maybe 1/2 mm left, so that was too close for comfort. And on the other side, push it out. There we go. Usually they say the inside wear is more, but we had the opposite here, so there's maybe 1 mm left. Okay, and then you get a screwdriver or something and you get these springs out of there. It comes with new ones, so we're going to use the new ones. Top and bottom, same thing. They only go in one way. It's pretty hard to screw it up. You have to be pretty much an idiot to screw this one up. Okay, while we're in here, we're going to take a digital caliper and measure the clearance. Of course, now it doesn't want to work. And that's what you get with cheap batteries. Okay, well anyway, I believe it's 10 mm. The distance between here on the rotor is the minimum wear. They come with 12 brand new. This one was 11 something millimeters, so we're good for one change of pads. Typically you get one change of pads on the rear brakes, and then you got to do the rotors. Here's the new ones. You can see the difference, old one to new one. Quite a bit of thickness difference there, right? They basically just go on so that the round part is round, just like the rotor. Typically the bottom pushes in and then you throw the top in, wiggle it around. Sometimes they don't like to go in that well. There we go, it's one side. Here's the other side, so we'll get the bottom in first. Jiggle it around a bit. Same thing on the top. There we go. The one thing you want to avoid is on the surfaces of the disc and on the surfaces of the brake material, don't get your greasy fingers on there. If you do, you have to use a brake cleaner to get it off. Okay, now the next step is to push that piston back in. And this is not a conventional caliper. You cannot use force to push that piston in or you will damage it. As you can see, the handbrake mechanism is right here. Pulls this lever forward, both sides of the car, and there is basically a big bolt on the inside of this caliper that pushes the piston out to the brake pads for your handbrake, and it's every time you hit the handbrake, it is adjusting the piston position in there, including, you know, for the hydraulic portion of it. So you can't just drive backwards, hit the brakes, and it'll adjust like most other cars. This is, you know, totally different. There's a tool for it that basically hooks in here, hooks into the piston, and you have to rotate the piston clockwise to get it to retract, and you need to retract it here. You know, for us it's going to be 1.5 centimeters at least to get that piston back in, because these pads are so thick now, there's no way you're going to get this over top of these new pads, you know, compared to the old pads, which were really thin. So it's kind of a ghetto tool that I use. I'm going to get the Volkswagen tool at some point, but I'll use a big clamp. It's actually a wood clamp for holding wood together while you're gluing it. This big C clamps aren't big enough because you have to clamp all the way from the back of the caliper here to the front face, and there's a cube that goes in there. I'll show you that in a second. Alright, so here's an adjustable clamp that we've got here. It's an Irwin. You know, you can adjust it to all different lengths, and then you have the adjustment here. So what we want to do is get the adjuster kind of in the middle, and this is the cube I'm talking about. It comes with a bunch of different nubs on there. One of these was supposed to fit Volkswagen Mark 4 and Mark 5. It's exactly the same design on here, but what I had to do was grind off 2 nubs where it had these much smaller nubs, and that basically fits right in there like that, so you can basically turn that. So you want to hold that in there with a clamp now. So here, this is the tricky part, okay? So this takes a bit of, if you've never done this before, it takes a bit of going around. Lots of patience. Try to avoid cuss words. It's next to impossible though. Now we got some real good tension on there. Try this again. There we go. It's rotating clockwise. You always want to keep the tension on here. As you go, you can see it's retracting already. Every quarter turn you got to tighten the tension here. Keep going more, or your clamp's going to fall off and you're going to have to use some nice choice cuss words again. Okay, keep tightening that up. It's not stupid tension, but it's good tension. Okay, tighten it up again. Don't want it to fall off. Okay, keep tightening it. That was really loose that time. Okay, almost there. Okay, one more. One more. You want to go a little bit more than you think. Okay, should be it. Loosen that off. Get rid of that. Okay, that's it. We're done. Hopefully you've loosened it off enough that this fits over your pads, and it does. That's good. Now we've got to clean up the slides. Show you the short one here first. Just pull back the rubber. Wipe off all the black stuff in there. There we go. Now we're going to use some lithium grease. fairly liberally apply that on there. A little bit on the end like that, like so. And we're going to pop that in there. Show you, it goes right there. And you just want to rotate it as you go in the hole. Okay. The grease is going to want to come spitting out a little bit. And just push it all the way and rotate it a bit more, and it'll snap, it'll pop. Now that's sealed in there. Sometimes you get a little bit of grease in there and you just wipe that off. Generally it's not necessary, but now we'll do the bottom one. So here's the bottom one going in. Same thing. This is the longer of the two. There we go. That's it. Okay. Now we can pop the caliper back on. Okay, so every time, you can't reuse these old caliper bolts. The brake kit comes with new ones with the pads. Alright, it's pretty easy to get it up here. You just kind of get it around and push those caliper slide pins in enough that you can get the caliper over top. Put the new bolt in. You'll only be able to hand tighten it so much, and then it'll spin on the inside. Okay, so that's spinning there. That's that Loctite material that's on the threads there, catching a little bit. Same thing on the bottom. You can only slide it so much. Now what you can do is you can use your 15 and your 13 and start tightening that, or a socket, whatever you prefer. On the outside here, you can gets tight pretty fast. But just a warning, if you're using a regular 15mm wrench on the inside here, before you tighten this fully, you need to pull the wrench out and use some, like needle nose pliers or a really thin 15mm wrench or whatever to tighten it, because if you don't, as you tighten this, it'll compress down on that wrench and you won't be able to get out. So that's getting tight, I can feel it now. So I need to pull that out. Same thing, tighten the bottom one. So now we'll do the final torque on here. I'm just going to use the ghetto method and hang on to it with the special pliers. That's it for the top, bottom. This is not the best 13mm wrench I've ever used. That's it. Done. You can hose off any excess brake fluid or whatever if you want. Typically there's not that much. You can just wipe it off. Clean it off wherever it's spilled. Now bolt the wheel back on. Alright, that's it. Time to put the wheel back on. There's a whole bunch of holes in there, so just make sure you got a couple holes facing up. Same thing on the wheel. Put the wheel back on here. Put your foot against the bottom. You can use a socket to get it on quicker. I always put these in by hand. To use the gun, cross thread one, it's nasty. You don't want to do that. Alright, then you want to torque them down. I'm just going to give them a little snoochie here. And opposite. Okay. Drop the wheel down. Tighten them for real. I usually use about 120 foot-pounds. Use a torque wrench. If you don't, you're an idiot. Check them all again. Okay. The reservoir is buried a little bit on these Mark 5s. There's the top part with the float. Just shoved it aside on the battery. And down a little bit. This is dot 4. And you want to top off the fluid. Don't go nuts. It's about a centimeter and a half from the top of the neck. Okay, that's it. Don't spill this all over the place. It likes paint. Makes paint soft. There we go. Shove that in there. Make sure you get any excess brake fluid, bad stuff. Yeah. That's it. So we got new fluid level all the way to the top. Then the last thing we need to do is try the handbrake. Alright, so back in the car, and all we have to do is basically just ratchet that lever. You'll feel it get solid. Okay. Brake pedal feels good. That's it. 64,960 kilometers on one set of pads. That's about average. You may get a little bit more if you do highway driving, and you get less on a rear set of pads if you do a lot of city driving.